So here's a bit of a monologue discourse of something that might be interesting to some of you. Quantum physicists these days are leaning towards a theory which is called the many worlds theory. And what they are saying is that there are many worlds. There are a whole myriad of cosmoses in slight variance. And the reason why they say this is because quantum mechanics, quantum physics, presents things to them that are so bizarre that they are pretty well incomprehensible. But the closest they can get to comprehending what quantum mechanics is showing them is that, well, first and foremost, there's no material matter here, and secondly, due to the complexity of quantum physics, there appear, or the only reasonable explanation they have at this moment in time for certain equations that they are absolutely sure of, is that, well, there must be, you know, a gazillion universes, cosmoses, worlds, many worlds. And how this hypothesis plays out is kind of like when things happen which could constitute the collapsing of the probability factor. Sorry, I can't really get into how to explain this. It takes a long time, but if you want to know about the many worlds hypothesis, then look at Sean Carroll, quantum physicist. Sean Carroll, very popular these days, doing lots of lectures on the subject. He will tell you how the many worlds hypothesis has made manifest, and it's going to take some getting your head around, to be frank, but I'm only mentioning that because knowing that gives rise to some of my own hypotheses about experiences that I've had, and then hypothesizing about many worlds. So, I don't know how many years ago it was now, let's just say it could have been 6 or 8 years ago. I started, I think, yeah, probably about 6 years ago, since my old man passed away. I started to have dreams of him, which were somewhat different to what they used to be, in that I became lucid in the dreams. And I was aware that when I was dreaming of him, I had entered his world where he isn't dead, and I had a conscious awareness that I was in his world, and I entered into a body of an existing Aaron in his world, and I communicated with him on a very average and normal basis, as if it was happening all the time. And so let me see if I can unpack this can of worms for you. My man died about 6 years ago, like I say, and I used to have this relationship, and it's all in my book, by the way. I tell these great stories in my book. My relationship with my old man was that I always used to work for him, and then with him, and then in my adult years with my own businesses, I would employ him. So we had this role reversal thing going on, but our relationship always was premised and stemmed from our compatibility to work together. He needed someone to do certain jobs around the house. I had 11 brothers and sisters, and I used to take it upon myself for a wage to paint all of the exterior window frames in our 6-bedroom house. So it's a lot of painting, and many of the windows we had were cottage windows, with small, so they would have like 34 panes, and there was 3 of these on the front of the house, and then there's all different sorts of windows around the house. So it would take me the whole of the summer holidays in my spare time. I wouldn't do it all the time, but it'd take me 2 months to get round to painting them. And so I'd do that, and then I'd do all different sorts of other jobs around the house, like cutting the hedges and the lawns and the gardening, and whatever else I could do, which he wanted to subcontract out to me. And so we had this relationship, and he could trust me, and he could never trust my elder brother, and so he never employed him. But when I dream of him now, I enter into his dream world, and it's very much like Inception. For those of you that have seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie Inception, where people enter into other people's dreams. It's kind of like that, but I'm entering into another world in my dream state. So whilst I'm sleeping and I am dreaming, I go and visit him in his world, which is existing. And this is what I've said because I've been studying dreams now for many, many years, and I very often questioned whether the dream world are actually other worlds, like many worlds. And all of the people we're dreaming about and all the places we go, they all seem so, very feasible, don't they? There's lots of peculiar things going on. In some of them you can fly and you can be invisible and all those sorts of things. But, that's not too much of an absurdity. It's just different from this dimension. Now, when we enter into the astral plane, you can fly, you can walk through walls, and you can do many things that you can't do here. And so I know that there are different states of consciousness which I can go to, and I have been, and I experience different worlds with different people, sometimes different entities, things like that. So I've had, a dozen out-of-body experiences, which I write about in the book, and then peculiar spiritual encounters. They're not dreams, they're vastly over and above dreams. They're super technical and crystal clear, and you have a heightened state of consciousness when you are within them, and the clarity is perfect. So I've had angels, then I've had this scenario where I saw my deceased father, who was looking how we would imagine Jesus to look, how we've seen Jesus looking and portrayed in movies and things like that, barefoot, walking very slowly with arms down by his side, palms facing forward. Very important to have open hands and palms facing forward, people. And I can do a separate video on what that means. It's very, very powerful. And the countenance of Jesus' face. Now, I saw my deceased father only a few days after he died. And he died about 67 years old, and was it 73? I think 73 maybe. And I saw him in super crystal clear technicolor as a young man in his prime, about 33 years old, same age as Jesus. And everything about the attributes of him were very Jesus-like. And he was walking barefoot, which means in certain religions and philosophies that he was dead. His hands were facing forward, which means he's absolutely open. In receipt of cosmic God consciousness. And I saw this glow in his face, and it was absolutely immaculate. And it told me that I don't ever have to have any ill feeling about his passing, because he's with the Father. And what I write about in the book is when Jesus says, I and the Father are one, and then he also says that we're all sons of God. And in the book of Thomas, Jesus says that he is identical twins with us. And so we're all Jesus, we're all the sons of God. And it's also said that Jesus is the manifestation of God in human form. So we're all God. And so there's many, many facets of this which all come together, and I've brought them all together. And I write about them in the book for a greater picture. You'll see where I am coming from and why I'm saying the things I say, and why I know that, you know, I am God, we are God, it is all God. And in the book of Thomas, I'm just reading actually in this incredible spiritual Bible, probably the best spiritual book in the world. Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, and in this Gospel, and this is also the case in the Gospel of Luke, the kingdom of God is not an event that's going to catastrophically shatter the world as we know it and usher in a new millennium. Here, as in Luke 7:20, the kingdom of God is said to be an interior state. It is within you. Luke says, and here it says, it's inside you, but it's also outside of you. It's like a state of consciousness. It's hard to describe, but the kingdom of God here is something that you can enter when you attain gnosis, which means knowledge. Okay, so what is written in the book of Thomas, and also here it states with Mark and Luke, the kingdom of God is within you all. Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you all, and you can enter this via a state of gnosis, knowledge. And so this is what I've experienced, this is what I found, and this is what I'm conveying, much to the chagrin of indoctrinated small-minded Christians. We are God. We are twins of Jesus, who is the Son of God, who is also God. You know, it's the paradox of the New Testament. And so we can find our own godliness when we enter gnosis, which is the broader spectrum of knowledge. And the knowledge is the deep-rooted of self. And when we know what we are, we know we're God. And it's just as simple as that, really. It's a deep-rooted intuition. There's nothing that could take that away from you, and I've had so many DMT experiences which have told me exactly the same. And it's not only been DMT, it's been, you know, lying on this couch just coming out of meditation and having Jesus give me this feeling of unconditional love and all that. And you know, as I said, I've made so many videos about it, you're probably bored stiff about it, but these things are really, really important if you want to get a handle on what you are, you see. what this is. If you have a metaphysical leaning, if you are philosophically inclined, if you are spiritual by nature, then you'll want to know these things. And so that's what I've been discovering and learning and experiencing over these past 14 years. But getting back to the theme of this video now, when I dream of my old man, I know that I go and visit him in his world. He doesn't come into my world. That's never how it works. I go to visit him, and when I visit him, I enter into another Aaron Berry who is also living in that dimension. My old man isn't dead. He's just carrying on doing all the things that he always did do, and I am there working with him. But if I need a little bit of advice about I don't know, work, or you see, because he's my archetype for industry, is my industrious archetype, and anytime I'm thinking about money, or maybe one day I'll be more active in society again, then I go and see him, because if I'm going to be dreaming about that stuff, then I'm going to enter into the archetype of my own industrious nature. And so you need to know about archetypes if you're going to grok this. And of course I do a whole section of archetypes in there. And so, but the very, very peculiar and interesting thing is about this, people, is that I am lucid when I am in his world. It's not like I just wake up and, oh, I dreamt of my dad. No, I went into his world, I saw exactly what he was doing, and I entered into alter Aaron Berry, who is living with my dad, working with my dad, and I look through his eyes, and my consciousness is there, and I don't have any connection to that paradigm. This conscious Aaron Berry, it's all alien to me, and I look at it like looking through the eyes of John Malkovich, if any of you have seen that movie. And it's very similar when I go out into the astral. When I go out into the astral and I encounter other astral beings, they act with me as if they've known me a long time, and on some occasions they are lovers of mine, and so they know that the body, the figure that they are with, because that is a world in its entirety. But what my consciousness does, it quantum jumps into another world. This is the many worlds thing, you see. I've had many worlds experiences whereby I've jumped into other dream worlds of other people, and when I go out into the astral, I enter into other bodies which I'm assuming is me. I can't look at me, but I've entered into a body, and I'm looking through the eyes of this being, and the women are acting with me, some we're having sex and that, and then I'm seeing other people, and they're just acting as if they've known me forever, and so there's nothing unusual about that. So I must be slipping into another entity, and looking through the eyes of John Malkovich. My consciousness is there behind the eyes, or looking through the eyes in the skull of other entities, and I'm conscious of this, people, and so it's really, really bizarre. And I've often speculated, and I write about it in the book, that these places that we go are actually real places. And I've sort of like, there must be billions and billions and gazillions of these places, and it's kind of like, it can't really be true. But now you see, now quantum physicists are even saying that. And what they're saying is that this thing is so massive that it's not a problem to house gazillions and gazillions and gazillions of cosmoses. And every time we do something, like if we make a phone call, then we enter into another world. Because one of us didn't make the phone call, the other one did make the phone call. If you make the phone call, you enter into another world. And, you know, all these different sorts of things. And if you listen to Sean Carroll with his many worlds hypothesis, he'll explain in more details over a whole hour. And so, you see, all I'm doing, and when I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking of a life experience. And I'm drawing on things which are supposed to be real in this dimension. And I have encountered Jesus, and I have considered that I am Jesus, I am God, and lots of Christians, all Christians, would want to stone me to death for saying that. But in the book of Thomas, which is written by Didymus, Judas Thomas, and Thomas means twin in Greek. And so the book of Thomas wrote the book, and he was having a conversation with Jesus, and Jesus told him these things. And so Thomas wrote them down. And Thomas claims here that he is the twin of Jesus. And so, anyway, this is at page 475. No, just before that. I speak here, know thyself. I go into Socratean stuff. This is just cram-packed with philosophy, spirituality, metaphysics, and science, and everything. It really is something, and I don't even know how I wrote it, to be fair, and that's why I say I didn't. But yeah, you see, when I'm all blustering about my genius and, you know, this and that, it's because my consciousness is so massive. It really is. It's got many worlds inside it. I'm aware of these other worlds. I visit these other worlds. I actually do. I go to them when I leave the body in astral form. I go to them when I dream. I dream about presidents. I dream about megastars. I dream about all different sorts of things. And I have a relationship with all these people in real places. And they are there. They are there. You know, when we think about dreams, and of course I write about dreams from Jung's perspective, from Freud's perspective, but when we think about dreams, if we just think like, for instance, there has been quite a few occasions when I have been communicating with Obama, Barack Obama. And we've just been sitting down, you know, just like you sit down with any mates, having a glass of wine, and, you know, there's no talk of any presidential thing or anything like that. It's just casual. And this has happened so many times, and there's been so many presidents that I've done that with. And I'm like, well, you know, it's so curious that I could build these things. Why would I build these things? No real rational reason why I would build these things, why I'm meeting all these presidents, you know. But when our spirit is free of an evening time, when our mind is unconscious, well, the unconscious never goes to sleep. The unconscious is always conscious. And so it's only unconscious from our conscious perspective, and it's only the conscious mind that goes to sleep. The unconscious is always awake. And so, well, it's going to be active, isn't it? That's why it takes us on these dream excursions. And it just continues and to take us into many, many worlds, doing many, many things. And it really is bizarre, profound, and exciting, and curious, and crazy, and all this stuff. But when you've experienced these things, and then when you've learned about that these things are supposed to be a reality. When you come upon, I only came upon the Book of Thomas a year ago, a couple of years ago, something like that. I'd heard about it for many years, and a few things, a few lines, but I'd never read the whole thing in its entirety. And of course, in recent times, I've learned so much more about Jesus and God and the Bible and religion and spirituality and all this. All the pieces came together right at the appropriate time, and then poof, they just got laid down. And you know, reading through this book, it just goes from chapter to chapter to chapter to subject to subject to chapter to subject to that, and it's just kind of like on and on and on and on and on. I mean, how many people have wrote a book which is 700 pages? On my bookshelf there, I'm up there with Madame Blavatsky. You know, she's wrote several volumes like this. Peter Kingsley, reality is somewhere in this sort of dimension. And so let's just have a look, shall we? Just to see, you know, the similar sort of magnitude, what we're dealing with. So here we have Isis Unveiled, Madame Blavatsky, and so that's a double volume, and then Madame Blavatsky here, The Secret Doctrine, and then we've got Peter Kingsley here with Reality, and they, you know, they're not even actually. In actual fact, let's have a look. Yeah, okay, so same size there, and yeah, you know, then we've got the Second Coming of Christ. That's the double volume. That's absolutely a superb read. And then there's nothing else really, other than when you start to get into the greatest of philosophers that just had a million things to say, and it's probably like the collective works of somebody over many years. This one here, Ian McGilchrist, The Master and His Emissary. That one's a recent book, speaking about the left brain and the right brain, and a whole bunch of things. And so there's a lot of stuff in there. And it's not really like, oh, you know, it's so daunting. You can actually just flip through to different subject matter if you so desired. But if you want to get the full thread of how I, you know, compiled all that, then, you know, you'd be wise to read it all the way through. And so anyway, I just thought I'd make a wee video about that. I mean, this stuff's just complicated, isn't it? And you know, I've got a lifetime of experience and knowledge in many different realms of consciousness, and I'm bringing it and I'm, you know, laying it before you, and it's kind of like, what the fuck? What's this guy talking about? Because it's all coming from such depth, but I'm trying to, you know, put some pieces together. But the beautiful thing is now, you see, I've been doing these videos. There's lots of new viewers, by the way, recently. In actual fact, we're gaining subscribers about 3 a day or something like that. And so all of you new subscribers, I've been doing this for 10 years, YouTube channels, and I have many YouTube channels, and you know, lots of them have been taken down by YouTube because of the controversial things I've said, and others I've took them down myself because they're old, and that was then. I don't want stuff up what I was saying 10 years ago. And nobody, in fairness, wants to watch a video that's that old when you've got current stuff. And you know what I notice now is that, you know, I only ever get comments on my latest video on that day. Invariably nobody even comments the day after or the second day after or something like that. And most certainly nobody ever puts a comment down on videos that have been there a week or a month or 6 months. It just doesn't happen. People just want to be tuned into the current vibration, and they're not interested in old stuff. And so that's why, you know, after a year's gone by, I'll just probably wipe the slate clean again and start again. Because, you know, what I do find is that the hits on my videos, they come about when the video goes up live. And then after a week, no more hits on it, and it will stay that way forever then. And maybe 1 or 2 people will watch the video or a bit of it, but there's no interest there. You see, and that's just a phenomenon that we have to deal with in our modern times, when there is so much information which is current, you know. And the red bell, when you get a red bell, then you're on it. If there's no red bells, people don't bother to look on your channel, really, if there's any new videos. And if the video's a week old, then it's kind of like, oh, that's old hat. Well, in actual fact, it isn't, because the stuff I'm speaking about is timeless. Anyway, enough said, okay? So, catch you later.